Good? Okay, page 542. 19.1. We're studying protists. Now, we've already done, listen, again, the taxonomy works like this. We've talked about domain bacteria and domain archaea. We've talked about those a little bit. The next domain is eukarya. And domain eukarya has 4 kingdoms. Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, and Kingdom Animalia. And the way this book works is we're going to talk about this for a chapter, that for a chapter, that for about 3 chapters, and that for about 10 chapters. And so that's how we're going to spend the next several months for this class. Now,
I heard the second half is more fun.
oh, good. I hope so.
Everything's
First
fun.
half has been terrible.
Everything's fun with
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Kingdom Protista are these little organisms. Many of them are microscopic, but some of them are multicellular, where you can see them. And we're going to study these in detail, and you're going to have to do a lot of memorization here. You're going to have to know a lot of phylum names. First, all protists are eukaryotes. What does eukaryote mean?
They have a nucleus.
They have a nucleus. They have, eu means true. So they have a true nucleus. Karyo means nucleus. True nucleus. Meaning they have a membrane around their DNA inside their cell. All protists have that for each cell. Some reproduce asexually by mitosis, while others exchange genetic material during meiosis. We'll talk about the sexual reproduction of these things as we go. Now, protists come in 3 types. There's your animal-like protists, your plant-like protists, and your fungi-like protists. Now, the animal-like protists are called protozoans. Protozoans. Why are they animal-like? Because they have to eat. They have to eat just like animals do. And so protozoans are heterotrophs. Heterotrophs mean you have to eat. Usually ingest bacteria, algae, or other protozoans when they eat. And here's an example of one, an amoeba. I have amoebas in the other room. We're going to look at them under the microscope. An amoeba is a microscopic organism, but with the microscope you can see it real big.
How can they tell that they eat stuff?
And you can sit there and watch them. A little paramecium will be coming around, and this amoeba will engulf it and eat it. They also know it doesn't have any photosynthetic pigments. It doesn't have any pigments in it for changing carbon dioxide and water into food. It doesn't absorb sunlight. It doesn't do any of that stuff. It won't be able to make food on its own, and it'll die if you don't give it food. So they consume other organisms for food. Some are parasites, meaning they can live on or inside other organisms. So we'll talk about those. So these protozoans include the ciliates, the amoebas, the apicomplexans, which I'll show you what those are, and the zooflagellates. And then there's the plant-like protists. They make their own food through photosynthesis. What's the word for making your own food through photosynthesis? Autotrophs. They're autotrophs. And we have another name for the plant-like protists. We call them algae. So algae are protists. Protozoans are the animal-like protists. Algae are the plant-like protists. And here's an example of one, giant kelp, seaweed. I don't know if you've ever seen the giant kelp. We don't have much around here because they prefer colder waters, but in California, that west coast, they're all over the place. And there's a whole bunch of different types of algae. There's euglenoids, diatoms, dinoflagellates, green algae, red algae, brown algae, yellow-green algae, golden brown algae. I have examples of these in the other room that we're going to look at. Yes, they're plant-like because they make their own food through photosynthesis. Some can consume other organisms and make their own food. There are some that do both, eat other organisms and make their own food. And then there's the fungus-like protists. Fungus-like protists absorb their nutrients from other organisms. They're decomposers.
Good, lizard.
That's a dead lizard, and the white hairs growing on it is called a water mold. Maybe if you've seen a dead fish in an aquarium that's been sitting there for a few days, you'll see this fuzzy stuff growing on it. That's water mold. And water mold is a fungus-like protist. Also slime molds and mildews. If you've ever left a wet towel in your locker for a while, and you go home for the weekend and the wet towel sits in there, and then you come in and it smells real bad, that smell is created by mildew growing on the towel and decomposing it. Because the towel is probably made of cotton, which is organic material that can be decomposed.
Yeah, I left one of my basketball bags for a while.
So if I leave a towel
The only way you can get
that's
off
wet
that
out for
bullshit.
for a long time, or really how long would it take to decompose?
To completely decompose? Well, you'd have to keep watering it probably, or else it'll dry up and then the fungus will die. But if you kept watering it, it would decompose. I don't know how long. Different things go at different rates. They're fungus-like because they feed on decaying organic matter and absorb nutrients through their cell walls. Some slime molds actually consume other organisms, and a few slime molds are parasites. You can have slime molds actually growing on living things. But, so those are the three types. The animal-like, which are called protozoans, the plant-like, which are called algae, and the fungus-like, which are called molds and mildew. So, that's what we're going to study the next several days in this class. We spend a day talking about each one of those four types. So this section, page 542, it's only 4 pages long, is just kind of an introduction to the protists. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you in there and show you the lab that we're going to be doing for the next week. So you can turn that off.